Today we're going to talk about more of sampling. Here, just a quick review, our SRS, or simple random sampling. A pro to this is that it is completely random. We're not going to have any bias whatsoever here. It's good in that way. In some cases, simple random sampling, if the results are what it is, you cannot really say it's hard to beat out simple random sampling in terms of saying that you're setting the value up for bias. Con to that is that depending on what you're trying to get a sample of, you may simple random may take too much time. If the population that you're trying to take your sample of is thousands or millions, then simple random sampling may, in order for it to be a representative of that population, right? If it is heterogeneous, you're gonna have to take a lot more samples in order for it to be a representative of that population in simple random sampling. So the con there would be time. Next one is our stratified or stratified sampling, and this one, it breaks down our samples into groups, and then within those groups you want to sample. So if, let's say, you had a farm, and in your farm you have some chickens. Okay, not a good chicken picture. Okay, some chickens and chickens, and then you also have some cows. Not okay. Not a good picture of a cow here at all, but looks like a pig. Okay, so we'll say these are cows, and we have chickens, and we wanted to see the sample of the amount of bacterium in each set of animals, and how much antibiotics we may or may not want to get depending on how sick our animals are. Percentage wise, then we might want to then get a certain amount. Let's say we have it's a big farm. Let's say we have 600 chickens and 400 cows. Then to get a good representative, we might get a sample. Instead of having to do all that, we can do 60 chickens and 40 cows, as long as the ratios kind of stay the same in stratified sampling. It is a good representative of a heterogeneous group. So the pro, it's good for heterogeneous groups to be represented. Cons to stratified sampling groups is that depending on how many heterogeneous groups and how to break the heterogeneous groups are up, is depending on what you're asking. So the questions are important there when you're dealing with your heterogeneous groups. Next one is clusters. Cluster, remember, you take a imagine there's a whole group, and you're like, here, I'm going to take this cluster here of this entire population. A cluster is really good for your homogeneous groups. And let's say if you had a entire like a river system or a lake, and you wanted to see the health of that lake, well, you can take that cluster of that lake water and look in the area of that lake to see how well it is. It will give you a good representative of that lake. So in terms of clustering, it's really good if it's a homogeneous group. You just pick a certain area there. Next is multi-stage. And multi-stage is just any combination of your different SRS, your clusters, your strata, and oh, uh, systematic. And that one here next is basically we're gonna go with a pattern. So systematic or systemic is if you had a whole group and we're gonna start, and you basically, it works with a pattern and you determine that pattern. So here, well, let's say we're gonna pick 2 and then you skip 3 and you pick every one, you skip 3 and then you take a sample that way, determining on the pattern, and you get to determine the pattern. The pro to this is it saves time compared to your simple random sampling. Your con to this is that it still takes some time, and also you could possibly miss some groups. So that is it's like not that much time, not a lot of time, a lot of time saved, but you do save time, not a lot of time saved, and you could could skip groups too. Okay, next one is let's talk about some terminology here. A pilot. Your pilot is going to be your trial run. Your trial run, like if you've ever seen a show, right? The pilot is the very first episode. It is the trial run. It is to see if it's going to work well. If it works well, then you, from that pilot, then you actually do the real the real survey. And from there, with a survey, we have different types of surveys. So let's say voluntary response from their survey. So voluntary response is people ask questions, and whoever answers the questions, they answer, right? So anyone who answers. Here, the problem to voluntary is there is a lot of bias when it comes to voluntary response, because only the people that want to respond are responding, and so you're not getting the true representative of your population, because there's going to be a whole lot of people that may not your introverts are not going to want to respond right away, or the people that are on the fence and haven't really quite figured out how they want to respond. That is a different one. Another one is convenience. And your convenience sampling is anything that is close, right? Within close to the surveyor or proximity. And that too is not very good, right? It's not representative of a big group. However, it is good if you want to find, if convenience is good if you have a homogeneous group and you're and the sample size is smaller. So convenience is not completely bad, but it's not very, very representative of a big group over there. Convenience also can suffer from what we call as undercoverage. Undercoverage is basically you missed a group. You missed a population that you're trying, like part of your population that you're trying to get. So if you're trying to get the point of view of everybody, let's say in this nation, then that means you mix, white, black, Asian, Native American, and if you are only doing proximity, you might get under coverage. Or if you do clusters, you might have undercoverage if you missed a particular group. That is undercoverage. You missed a population. And this can lead to bias. Next is also non-response bias. And the non-response is just those ones that, they didn't respond. So those people that don't respond, that is a bias that you have to incorporate into your data, right? That you have to acknowledge that, oh, hey, I tried, like we did robocalls and we tried to call and all these numbers and these people didn't pick up, or from those people that did pick up, they're like, I'm not going to tell you. Well, if they don't tell you, then how do you know their answers? So that is a difficult one. Okay, did not. That is a difficult one to overcome. And also, there is also a response bias. Response bias can happen based on the survey and how the survey influences the responders. So if you are going, like, you have to be careful of the words you use in your survey. So if you use words that call forth a feeling, so they call them loaded words, like patriotic, right? Or masculine, or genuine. These are loaded words. When people say these words and you use them in your survey, that can lead to a response bias. So if I were to ask, they're like, oh, do you assume this person's actions were patriotic? And that will have a different response than if you were to ask, oh, did this person have a negative or positive impact on this sector of the population? Two different wordings, and we'll get two different answers each time.